Okay, so now we're going to move on. That was a great interview, a really interesting project. Now we are moving on to another panel debate, which is entitled Value What You Wear. We touched upon earlier in our earlier Agora session this need for sustainable clothing, 150 billion items of clothing, textiles, are produced for the world's 7 billion people every year. That's obviously a number that needs to come down. This panel is going to look more at the garment factories, the production, and how developing countries are bearing the brunt, essentially, of the environmental impact for the consumer countries in the Western world. The moderator for this panel is Alexander CHARALAMBOUS, and I'll hand the floor over to you, and I'll pick up here in Studio 4 after this panel. Alexander.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Value What You Wear session of the European Development Days. I'm Alexander CHARALAMBOUS, and I will be moderating today's session, which is about the sustainability, transparency, and consumer awareness in Myanmar's textile and garment sector. We will be discussing with key actors of the European Union and private sector co-funded Smart Textiles and Garment project, a project that improves working conditions, promotes environmental and labor standards, and reduces labor right abuses in Myanmar's textile industry. You can find more information about the Smart Textiles and Garment project at smartmyanmar.org. Textiles in Myanmar undergo rapid industrialization. We've seen over 500,000 new jobs having been created only in the last 5 years in the country, but also with a number of challenges, notably regarding adverse environmental impacts and working conditions. We have with us today 3 key players of the Myanmar garment industry, and they are ready to share with us their views and experiences. But before introducing our speakers, a few housekeeping rules. You are welcome to address questions to the speakers. So please use the chat box for that purpose. Try to be concise, and don't forget to mention the speaker you would like to address the question to. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Ms. MYAT, who is a senior technical expert at the Smart Textile and Garments project. Min is also an Asia-Pacific Sustainable Consumption and Production Youth Ambassador of the United Nations Environment Programme. Min, thank you for joining us today. I would like to also welcome Ms. Andrea Henao, Managing Director of the 360 Agency in Berlin. Andrea exclusively promotes sustainable brands and initiatives across the globe. She's been leading the first sustainable advertising agency in the world. Andrea, welcome to our session. And Dr. Zhou, Executive Director of the Center for Economic and Social Development, with vast experience in inclusive development. Dr. Zhou, thank you for joining our session.
Thank you.
Min, I turn to you to kick off our discussion. What experiences from Myanmar would you like to share with us?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Min. I work for Smart Textiles and Garment Projects as a senior technical expert in Myanmar. Let me tell you the story of Myanmar cotton business. Myanmar cotton is a traditional crop which mostly grows in the middle part of Myanmar, especially the dry zone area. Myanmar cotton is widely used in the local producing like the traditional men's and women's clothing. Myanmar domestic clothing is stay focusing around natural fibers, especially cotton fabrics, and sometimes in recent years. In these years, many Myanmar trend was very popular among the youth and also the middle-aged consumer. It is because of like the influence of the activists, bloggers. So the designers, they created design using Myanmar cottons and the products, which has to be attractive. And also they are adding the value, that is the upgrading the life of farmers, cotton farmers, and also create jobs in rural areas. In recent years, there is Myanmar cotton is like the line is stay improving and is stable. Also, Myanmar cotton is not widely used for only purpose of the clothing, but also used for different purpose. For instance, like the sustainable packaging in some products to replace plastic bag. And also in that years, many business are very collaborative. The designers and also they inspire the European and Western design, and also they are using like the indigenous fabric design. You know, like the Myanmar has a very diverse, all indigenous peoples are stay together. Each people has each different ethnic fabric styles. So please, next slide. Please, next. I'm sure you already thought about like the social and environmental impacts of a garment when you are buying. You already thought about like the who made these garments, what is their labor standards, what is their social problem, and also you probably thought about like the resource, chemicals, energies, oils, and fuels along the manufacturing process, and also like from cotton to jam to fabric to clothing. All of the product use the resources. You know, like the consumers they can be bought very easily the garment. Yes, it's also including as Myanmar consumers, or I say, even this year, COVID-19 pandemic time, we have like the very popular like the cotton products, increasing the number of the Myanmar cottons abroad online shows. They are still numbering the increase in since selling items a lot of. Please, next slide. At the time, we have developed and still survived the cotton farmers and also the cottons and weaving business because they have with the help of the government law, and also they still have a targeted audience to survive the business. But in these years, we have been simultaneously suffer like the consequence of two C. First seed is the COVID-19, and last year the second seed is the COVID in these years. In the
Yes, I think we have a technical issue with Min, but hopefully we'll get back to Min in a few minutes. So Min was giving us a practitioner's perspective of how sustainable production and improvements have been can be achieved in Myanmar. There is a big question whether consumers in Europe and beyond are informed about these sustainable practices and about sustainable fashion in Myanmar. Let's call in our next speaker, Ms. Andrea Henao, to find out more about consumers in Europe. Andrea, over to you.
Great, thank you very much. Then thank you for waiting until now, since it's quite late. We'll go through that exciting campaign called Beyond Your Clothes. But before we start, I would like to ask a very simple question, but that might be a bit difficult to answer actually and find the right answer. Could you guess how many months of drinking water are required to process one single cotton t-shirt? I'm not talking about a pair of jeans or a coat, really just one single cotton t-shirt. Well, if you have the answer, do not hesitate to enter your answer in Slido, and we'll go through your answers at the end, at a later stage. Can we please go to the next slide? Then, Beyond Your Clothes is the name of the campaign that has been initiating by, sorry, it's not the same presentation I have here, it's fine. Understanding the impact of our clothes consumption is the first step to trigger a more sustainable consumption and improve our social and environmental impacts. And this was the entire goal of the campaign implemented by SECRA on the behalf of the European Commission. Then the aim of the Beyond Your Clothes campaign was to increase awareness, triggering a change in consumer purchase behavior through educational, inspirational, and attractive pieces of content. Next slide, please. We were talking to 3 different target audiences. The first one was sustainably completely unconscious, and our role was to educate them. The second target audience was slightly more conscious about their impact on the environment when it comes to clothes consumption, and they were the sustainably conscious audience, and our role was to provide information to them. And the last audience, sustainably active, was really to make them advocate and relay the entire initiative. Next slide, please. Then if we look further down into who are these different target audiences, and the fast fashion one, we all know someone in our entourage who really is into fast fashion, who buys probably once a week clothes, who has really a frenetic behavior, consumption behavior. They turn completely a blind eye when it comes to sustainability, or when it comes to clothes consumption impacts. Next slide, please. When it comes to conscious shoppers, actually, this is a much bigger chunk of our target audience. And this segment is much more aware of their clothes consumption consequences, and it's actually a bigger group. Even a recent Nielsen study demonstrated that consumers' commitment to sustainability now completely outperform those that don't. Next slide, please. Then regarding the sustainably active audience, then there we had, because we talked with all the different target audiences, and this one actually is surprisingly young. It's what we call Gen Z, and it's the generations that come after the millenniums. And there, they really are into recycling clothes, into upcycling, and a lot of them shop secondhand and are really trying to find solutions to repair or really upcycle clothes. And there is a lot of designers actually that maneuver into that direction. Next slide, please. Then there is 4 main markets. Next slide. It's okay on your side, thank you. Then there were 4 more markets where we were planning this campaign. One has been added at a later stage, but it was France, Germany, Netherlands, and Belgium, and Italy has been added to the mix. And next slide, please. As any other campaign, it always comes with challenges and opportunities. And one of the challenges that we were confronted to is that the fast fashion target audience is fairly young and really growing in a fast changing world with a tiny attention to brand to ads. Hence, it was really important to keep in mind that we had only a few seconds to attract their attention. And this was the entire really intention of the campaign. Next slide, please. A second challenge that we came across is the fact that we were talking to a very overwhelmed target audience. Then they've been hit recently by the first signs of climate change, but also by a full year of COVID-19. Then we were really having that constraint of having to be really careful, and being too heavy with the major, we would have frightened this already overwhelmed audience. Then during that whole campaign, we really tried to find the right balance between triggering emotion, interest, and showing the harsh reality. Next slide, please. Then in terms of opportunities, one of these opportunity in this campaign is that, and it's the strength of this campaign, is that the Smart Textile project do not promote a brand or a product. This campaign truly enabled to inform the target audiences on the disastrous environmental impact and social consequences of fast fashion. Another opportunity, if I can say, next slide, please, or I would say a constraint that we transform on an opportunity, next slide, please, is the fact that after 1 full year of COVID-19, it resonated as an introspection within a lot of consumers, and really many studies are proving and going into that direction. Then For some, it really changed their perception on their own consumption and their implications. And this leads to the next slide. Then here we really see on the next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. Then we really see that the consumer is on the top of a pyramid, and his choice into clothes consumption is directly impacting production, which is itself impacting the environment, and it does have some social aspects. And in terms of consumer journey, I would say, then we had the desire, we really tried our best to create the most desirable and attractive assets in order to attract and for them to look further into the message, making them realize that unsustainable consumption leads to a social impact and environmental consequences, trying to inspire them and show them that another more sustainable consumption is completely possible and easily reachable. Next slide, please. Then we can go to the website that has been, I'm not sure we can go to the website. Then what I would advise is, if you can write that down, the name of the website is www.beyondyouclothes.com. It's a parallax website. It's been done by developers in JavaScript and PHP. However, it's completely interactive. There is a lot of different information that we provide. There is expandable sections for the people who are sustainably active and looking forward for further in-depth information. Then I would really highly recommend if you can check at www.beyondyouclothes.com and tell us what you think actually through social networks that we'll review after. Then next slide, please. Next as well. Thank you. Then in fact, in terms of what we call a communication architecture, this is a proper campaign we are talking about now. Then we were playing with different mediums. Then we have an activation into outdoor, some with the website and other with Google ads, and also with social media ads and organic planning as well across Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We can scroll down. Next slide, please. And there we can see, next slide, please. Thank you. And there we can see, we can watch now the video. Can you please turn the video on? That it's a trailer of the campaign. Thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you very much. We can go back to the presentation now. Thank you. Then next slide. Then we warmly thank the team of Riverblue who created that documentary. It's required 2 years actually to obtain the authorization to film in Bangladesh, China, and India, and it's a very well documented piece of content. If you have the time to look at our website, look at environmental consequences, expandable section, and there you will see the video. Then now on the following slide about, then we had some, previous slides. Then we had initiative ambassadors. Previous slide, please. Then we gathered sustainable influencers around the world, then from Sweden, France, Germany, even the US, who were keen to relay this campaign. Then next slide, please. And then we had a chalk, and we are having a chalk graffiti implementation this Saturday across 4 different cities of the globe. Can you please go to the next slide? Thank you. Then everything is going to be relayed on the different social networks. If you can go to the next slide. Exactly. Then we'll have that wave of clothes that is going to be reinterpreted by 4 different artists in 4 different cities at almost the same time, in different time zones. But yeah, it's going to be relayed in our social media platform if you would like to take a look at it. Next slide, please. We have also then done a huge work into Instagram, really working on the key visual to make them as attractive as possible, but meanwhile showing the harsh reality. This is really the perfect example on how we really tried to convey these 2 different parameters. Next slide, please. We also had some, and we continue having some content uploaded on TikTok. There, actually, it's a very young audience. People engage quite well. And then there we have also some live sessions. And you can see the all content that has been uploaded, and it's much more about the solutions, actually. It's really important to show the harsh reality, but show as well that to have a sustainable consumption and to actually create, for example, biodegradable textiles, it's possible. There is a lot that is being done right now in terms of innovation. And if we want to inspire the different audiences, the producers, as well as the consumers, it's important to show all these solutions. And there you can find them on TikTok. Not all of them, of course, but some of them that are quite inspiring. Next slide, please. Yeah, you can look at the last live session that has been done a bit more than a week ago. Then thank you very much. Next slide, which is actually wrapping up and showing the entire length of the campaign. Then it's going to be ending up at the end of this month. We are already preparing an extension, but however, you can really watch everything in Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and the name of the account or the content to look at, it's Beyond Your Clothes for all these platforms. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for explaining, among others, how you have been raising consumer awareness of sustainable fashion. A quick reaction on your very first question about what is the quantity of water that is required to produce a T-shirt, how many liters? And the Slido replies we've got so far indicate a quantity over 2,500 liters. Can you confirm that?
It is true. It is true. The exact, actually, number of months required of drinking water, and for someone in India or in Africa where they actually currently experience problem of drinking water, it's actually 2.5 years just to produce 1 T-shirt. And we produce over 2 billion T-shirts per year. Then it's extravagant. It's really, people need to understand better when they buy a T-shirt that it's not only the price that comes on the tag, but there is a real environmental cost that everyone is paying, actually.
Indeed, we better think twice before we throw away our T-shirts. Let's now go back to Myanmar and find out more about the economic and social implications of Myanmar's textiles and garment industry, and implications not only for Myanmar, but also for Europe, apparently. And for that, I would like to hand over to Dr. Zhou.
Thank you, Alex. I'm very honored to share my experience working in Myanmar to this important audience from European Union. My organization joins Sequire to engage in this important initiative called Smart Tech and Green Fashion Production in Myanmar, where our organization take care of the research services in compiling evidence on how such initiative will benefit Myanmar and the consumers in Europe alike. As the title of this session suggests, that value what you wear, let me share you the evidence of how value of your clothing were made in Myanmar. Myanmar, as you know, it's the least developed country in Southeast Asia with a 52 million populations. And then we have about a quarter of population who are quite poor. And recently, the UN estimated that another 25% of the population became very poor due to the COVID-19 and then the political crisis. So it means that half of the populations in Myanmar are getting poorer. And under all these circumstances, our poor population is very much dependent on how much we can produce and how much we can actually produce clothing for the European consumers. And then I like to use this platform to appeal to your conscience of wearing the clothes of we made in Myanmar, as you can help us fight our crisis of poverty, COVID-19, and political conflicts battering the country. For your consideration, I want to discuss further on how value was created and by whom and by which kind of process. How value is created in Myanmar for one piece of clothing. In order for one apparel to produce, there's a whole supply chain of actors involved. The farmers, farm workers, the spinning and ginning factory workers, manufacturing workers throughout the country contributed to this value-adding process of making apparels and garments. We have over 11 million farmers in Myanmar who represent half of the labor force of the country, and about nearly 1 million workers in the textile and garment sector, who also represent half of the labor force of the manufacturing sectors. So it means that whenever you buy a shirt, you are giving jobs to about 10 to 20 farmers and workers in my country. Whenever you spend about 20 or 40 euro worth of shirt, you are feeding about 10 to 20 poor families who are dependent on the farmers and the workers of the textile and garment supply chain. And that is why the EU has designated countries like ours as the least developed countries that are the poorest on the earth to have the most favored nation status. So when we export our garment and apparel products to EU, we pay zero custom duties. So the more you consciously buy from LDC like us, made in Myanmar, the better we can address our poverty, the root cause of the conflict, authoritarianism, and the human rights violations in my country. Secondly, the garment and apparel products are very special because who create the value of clothing? In Myanmar, the garment sector, 90% of the workers are women. They come from the poor rural family who often migrate to urban centers to join the workforces of garment factories. They typically are less educated and have no way of joining the agriculture because in these days, agriculture sector use more machines than human labor. So they also used to be very vulnerable to human trafficking and sexual exploitation from our rich neighboring economies. For instance, like in Myanmar girls, where popular brides were saved for Chinese men. And the situation has been quite tragic until in the last 5 years, we have improved a lot thanks to the rapid growth of garment industry who employ such potential victims of rural poor migrant women. And in our garment industry, nearly 1 million workers are engaging in the sector, and then many of them, 90% of them are women. So in a way, when you help us improve the livelihood and mobility of our young rural women, why indirectly reduce their vulnerabilities to become victims of sexual trafficking? Last but not the least, I also want to explain what kind of value addition process were used in making apparel and garments in Myanmar. Myanmar, as you know, is still a latecomer compared to many of the ASEAN countries. Our economic liberalization that started only in 2012, so less than 10 years ago. So our agriculture production is done in more of the subsistence farming process rather than mechanized farming. And our manufacturing sector relies on labor-intensive process rather than advanced technology. So in a way, our process of making garment and textile products are less efficient and less productive, but also some environmental impacts have been, produced, as you can see in the photos. But we haven't reached to the same extensive phase of our giant neighbors, such as China, India, and Bangladesh, as you can see in the video. So while we strive for the efficiency and productivity of our garment industry, we can also advocate for sustainability and resilience, and that this project is doing exactly about this advocacy. As a latecomer, Myanmar also does not have to fall into the same destructive pathway and avoid the pitfalls of others who have polluted much more than what they have produced. So our project, in a way, informed the stakeholders about these lessons learned and advocate a more sustainable way to boost the production, and more importantly, how those at the bottom of the supply chains, the farmers, workers, share the benefits of the economic growth inclusively. Another important process unique to our garment and textile industry is that our industry is very active with the workers' unions from national, regional, and factory levels, and most of the workers are represented by the unions in this sector. The employers also show the highest compliance among many private sector firms and SMEs across the economy to oblige their contribution for social protection of the workers. Our Social Security Board that collects due from the employers. In this industry, almost 80% of the garment factories pay their dues regularly, while the rest of the economy, the compliance is less than 30%. In a way, the garment industry represents a model economic sector for the country where the workers, the employers, and then the government engage responsibly and sustainably. I hope the rest of the economy will learn from it. So we are also hoping that we can also take advantage of having women workers in this industry to nurture our future generations about the importance of environment and ecosystems. The mother and sisters can teach their children and siblings about the importance of our future in surviving drastic climate change. The more we promote such awareness through our workers, we are imparting valuable information to the whole society. So far, we found that women are much better at nurturing environmental education of our young generations. So this is also how some of us in Myanmar are contributing their share of collective endeavors for Paris Agreement, for climate change mitigation and adaptation process that you in the European Union has championed. This is experience that I'd like to share, and I'll stop here, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Zhou. Thank you also for sharing with us your experiences and the outcomes of your research on the value addition in Myanmar's garment sector. But I can see that Min is with us, so let's stay in Myanmar. And Min, without feeling any pressure, please continue your presentation. You have about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you move to the slide 3? So, sorry for inconvenience, and let me continue the presentation. The story of the Myanmar cotton business. In the last years, COVID-19, the farmers and also the weaving and spinning business, they can survive with the help of the government law, and also they still have a targeted audience. But now they have the many challenges. The main is the 3. because like the middle part of Myanmar has the cotton farmers, and also this area, this tension area with the security force. That's why some of the farmers, they are fleeing from their village. That's why they are not emphasized on the crops, and also they are forced to pay by the law by the military region. And also the cash is very rare in Myanmar, and also the banks are not enough cash after the military cut off the mobile internet, because like the digital currency is gone, digital money is gone due to this efforts. Next slide, please. So you can see the pictures and map. There is 3 administration. One division is happening war. In the left side of the arrows, you can see like the small weaving and seeds business are located in Sagaing and Chin State. And also you can see the right side of the arrow, you can see Kaya. Kaya is the ethnic state. Also they have like the cotton production, and also they have like the weaving fabric business of the indigenous people. Now they are in danger and it is the running. And also you can see the below picture, the lady is indigenous Chin people. Her face is like the blood tattoos, and she is the last generation of the Chin indigenous people. Also, like this indigenous people have like the different weaving, hand weaving fabric design, and also they wear. And also those indigenous people, they have like the they have passed down like the how to survive and how to wait off like the agriculture cultivation, and also how to resilient the man-made natural disaster from passing down from generation to generation. Next slide, please. Now the thousands of civilians, they are fleeing from their origin and move into the forest. You can see lots of indigenous people, also including the Kachin, Kaya, Chins, and also the Bama peoples. Those areas, peoples are moving around during the battle, and also they face like the sign of the environmental impact. That is during the war, some of like the particles from bombs and also artillery shells. Those particles are contaminate their swine, feed, their feeds, and also like the airs, and also going into the streams. That's why they can feed them some of the environmental impacts. Actually, those peoples are not a destroyer for environments. They have owned their fees, they have their house. Now they are being destroyed by the military, and also they lose their resource depletions. How they can survive on that? Also, indigenous people, they have many valuable properties and items of like their cultural traditional knowledge, how to maintain and how to do like their hand weaving techniques, and also how to do like the agriculture cultivations. But they cannot protect. They have own forests, but they are moving away, and also the loss of the biodiversity. That's why I'm asking and think about to you why we can support for the farmers to return to their homes, and also how we can provide them to survive like the weaving business and also cotton business in Myanmar. Thank you.
Thank you, Min. You mentioned indigenous culture and heritage, and I'd like to keep that because I find it quite important, and link it to a question we got from our audience. It's a question to Andrea, actually. So, Andrea, could you please tell us if indigenous culture issues have been part of your campaign as well? And which audience was actually most interested, the most interested to rely and promote the campaign?
Okay, yes, of course. Unfortunately, we didn't have any indigenous people joining the campaign. This would have been amazing, of course, because it's a cause that we strongly support here at the agency. But that's something actually we could discuss in the future, because when looking at the presentation of Min, I find this point extremely interesting, and that's something we could work on the future, definitely. Now, regarding the audience that was the most interested by the campaign or who relayed the most, we were expecting the sustainably active one, but actually it was the conscious shoppers and a bit of everyone, you know, the people, the normal people who are just into sustainability. Really, truly relayed and were engaged in relaying the campaign. And we were really pleased to see that, yes, some really nice not only initiative ambassadors, but also, influencers and individuals really did their best to relay this campaign. And I'm thinking in particular of an influencer from India who actually do not generate any profit with his accounts. He redistributes everything in Miyaki forests that he plants in Mumbai in order to try to decrease the CO2 footprint of the city. And we've been very touched to meet these kind of people who are in the ground and really try their best to change the curve of climate change.
Yes, we hope that in the future you will be able also to integrate these aspects in the campaign. But I have another question now to be addressed to Dr. Zoe. And Dr. Zoe, the question we have is about the effects of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. What has been the effect of the pandemic in the garment industry in Myanmar, and especially in the workforce?
Yeah, it is very heavy consequences on the garment industry. We have, up until now, 3 waves of pandemic. The first wave coming in late March and April. And then during that time, even though the pandemic itself was not so serious, but the pandemic was really affecting China. And then this is the country where we receive a lot of our inputs for the garment and textile industry. So all the inputs coming to the country were stopped, and then the workers and the factories have to close. And then during that time, we suffer quite a lot. And then in that first wave alone, we lost something like 50,000 jobs in the garment and textile industry. And the second wave comes around November and October time. And this is another peak season for the garment and textile industry, because this is what we call the dry season in Myanmar, where we have a dry weather where we can produce a lot of clothing, and then also, you know, our cotton production in the rural areas were also harvested, and then they were also producing a lot of cotton production. So when the second wave hit the country, not only it is medically very challenging, but it was even economically created more loss. So the third wave, which is about to come, as we are embracing some, pandemic coming from India and some of our neighboring economies. So we haven't really realized how damage it could produce. But even more than the pandemic, I think our political crisis also produced a lot of bad consequences. So because of that, I think our garment and textile industry is struggling a lot. And then this is where we have to need your help in reviving the industry.
Thank you, Dr. Zhou. And that we hope for a better future, obviously. But that brings us now to the end of our session, the end of the session, the value what you wear. I would like to thank our panelists, our speakers, Ms. Min MYAT, Ms. Andrea Henao, and Dr. Zhou, as well as all of you that have joined our session today. Enjoy the evening, and back to you at the studio. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, and thank you to all the panelists. What an interesting discussion. I think we had some major takeaways there. It's a really interesting issue where the relation between things that are happening in the developing world, like Myanmar, a long way away from us, that we are having a direct effect on. I am shocked at the 2,500 litres of water per garment. I mean, you just don't know these things. And I think as well, it's really important, and this is what these kind of conferences and these kind of panels can do, to spread the information, to raise the awareness of exactly what that fast fashion means for countries, especially when we're coming out of the pandemic, especially with the political troubles. There's so much we need to think about, and we need to be aware of it when we're popping into a shop to buy an item of clothing. I'd like to thank all of you. Thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you all the best for the rest of your day.